With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, despite some recent water years, management of water allocations remains a challenge. We'll have more on that. But we start off today with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA Live Cattle Marketing Committee Chair Troy Sander discusses his trip to Washington, D.C., where he briefed policymakers on cattle marketing and business issues. He's talking with NCBA's Hunter Ehrman.
Well, today we're joined by somebody from outside D.C. who's visiting with us for the week. We have Troy Sander, chair of NCBA's Live Cattle Marketing Committee. Troy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Hunter. So I was... I actually am part of a large cattle feeding operation in Kansas. So we have a one-time capacity of 100,000 head. We have a feed yard in southwest Kansas, about 70,000 head, and then one in southeast Kansas, 25,000 head. As you said, I have recently served as the chair of the Live Cattle Marketing Committee and enjoy having the opportunity to come to D.C. today and visit with you.
So, Troy, what does it look like to chair an NCBA policy committee, and what kind of issues does your committee hear about?
It's really, we haven't had any issues whatsoever over the last 4 years. No, I'm kidding. We've had our share of challenges over the last 4 years. It's interesting, when I took over as vice chair of the committee 4 years ago, as you know, that was kind of right in the middle of the COVID era. It was right after the Tyson plant fire, and so we had a lot of issues to work on. It was kind of at a point in our cattle supply where we were at a time where we had an oversupply of cattle, if you will, and so price was probably not. It was not the best and not a very profitable situation for us in this industry at that time. As we know, that cattle supply has kind of changed over the last 4 years, and we're in a much better leverage position now. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of price discovery talk back in the 20s, 2020 and into 2021. So those were some of the main things we worked on over the last 4 years.
So, Troy, how did you get involved in all of this in the first place, and why have you been a member of NCBA?
Yeah, so actually probably where I got my start in all this would have been with the Kansas Livestock Association. I was on our Feeder Cattle Council committee there and spent 4 years on that committee, and then worked up through the vice chair and then the chair of that committee. Actually culminating with the infamous meeting in Denver in 2020, and shortly after that, I was asked if I would be willing to be the vice chair of the Live Cattle Marketing Committee for NCBA, and that's kind of where it started. So it's kind of been about almost a 9-year process of where I've become more associated with and worked harder trying to tackle some of the issues in this industry and not just my own business alone. So it's actually been a really, really good and rewarding experience.
Well, we're certainly glad you're involved, and I want to switch to what you've been up to today. So what has brought you to Washington, and what have you been up to?
Yeah, so Tanner Beamer gave me a call and said, hey, I would love for you to come out and talk, maybe give a little bit of a presentation on Cattle Marketing 101 to some legal assistants, mainly with G.T. Thompson's group, and they invited some other Republican legal assistants as well. And so we spent the morning, just talking about cattle marketing and all the issues surrounding cattle marketing, and talking about how complicated our industry is when it comes to cattle marketing, and the different marketing mechanisms, if you will, whether it be negotiated cash, negotiated grid, formula, grid marketing, forward contracts, those types of things. So we spent about 2 hours doing that. And so that's kind of what we did this morning. It was very rewarding, and I feel like they came out of that meeting more educated about what the marketing issues are within our industry.
Well, I'm sure you saw that congressional staffers, they by and large tend to be pretty young, and a lot of times they're working on a whole range of issues. So the cattle industry might not just be the only thing in their portfolio. What was sort of the message you were delivering, and how do you think it was received?
The main message for me was, I've spent 30 plus years in this industry marketing cattle. And it started way back at Grant County Feeders in Ulysses, Kansas in 1995-ish. And, when we would have 4 packers show up at our feed yard on Monday morning and draw numbered golf balls out of a Crown Royal bag, if you will, for who's going to be on the cattle first. And we would listen to bids throughout the week. And, that's where it all started for me 30 plus years ago. And how that has changed over the years and how we have differentiated ourselves by moving to alternative marketing agreements and different types of grid marketing and those things. And really the message for the day I think they left with, and the current policy we have on the NCBA books right now is we are good stewards of our industry, and we are good stewards of our how we want to market our cattle, and we want to keep those decision-making processes within the producer's hands and not in the control of the government. We want to make sure that we're the ones making marketing decisions, not having the government making those decisions for us.
What do you think is important for policymakers to understand about how cattle markets function? Because we often say that these are some of the most complex markets, if not the most complex markets out there. So you can really do a lot of damage if you go about it the wrong way. What do you think policymakers should take away from your remarks?
Well, I think first of all, it's important to know that we have an amazing product that we've actually made amazingly better over the last, especially in the last 5 years, but more so probably in the last 15 to 20 years. We have cattle grading, 70 to high 70s to low 80% choice and prime, when just not that long ago, that was more like 50%. Because of these other avenues that we have to be paid for value and to be paid for better quality products, we were able to make those changes and make those changes genetically down the line and pass that value down the line. And I think the thing that maybe is a misconception is that when we as cattle feeders are paid for value at the packer level, that value stops there. But that is not necessarily the case, and it's 100% absolutely not the case. In that we have a really bad habit, right? We love to feed cattle, and we love to see our feed yards full. So what do we do with that value that we receive, those premiums that we receive on our cattle? We pass it right on down the line to try to be more competitive, to try to keep our feed yards full and pay the producers for their cattle to try to make sure that I can beat out the next guy to have those cattle in my feed yard. So we pass that value right back on down the chain even down to the cow-calf producer.
So you spent your career marketing cattle, and you've seen some really tremendous innovation in the cattle industry. What do you think the future holds for the cattle industry?
So I was actually part of a animal protein panel at the Kansas Ag Growth Summit 3 weeks ago, and I got asked that same question: is what do you see as opportunities for the future of the cattle feeding business? And the thing I see is that more and more people, because of technology, are able to learn that how important protein is in their diet. And if you look at projected population growth, we are going to have a 20 to 30% increase in demand for protein in the next 10 years. And I see that as a great opportunity for this industry. As other countries become more prolific and have greater earning potential, they're going to be able to pay for that protein as well. And from a demand standpoint and from a quality standpoint, I think we have an amazing future in the next 10 to 15 years in this industry.
Well, Troy, you've had the opportunity to spend some time in D.C. and see what NCBA is doing here firsthand. What are your thoughts on the value of NCBA having a presence here in Washington?
You know, that's probably been my most enlightening moment, honestly, for me over the last 4 years, is seeing how hard the people here in Washington, D.C. at NCBA work for our industry. And it honest to goodness, just scares me to think about if we didn't have that presence here in D.C. The job that you guys here in NCBA in DC get done for the cattle industry is just amazing, and we could not be more appreciative for that. And I'm saying that both as a member of NCBA and as a businessman and producer within our industry.
Well, Troy, thank you so much for the update today.
Thank you for having me, and I look for what the future holds both for our industry and for myself after I rotate off as my position of live cattle marketing chair. So thank you for having us, and I hope you have a good one.
This is the AgNet News Hour, and we will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Coming up in a few moments, we'll have today's This Land of Ours report, but first, more of the day's agriculture news. And with a preview of what you'll hear today on AgNet West, here's Brian German.
The National Cattlemen's Foundation is accepting applications for the W.D. Farr Scholarship. The scholarship honors W.D. Farr, a pioneer in agriculture and ranching, and is intended for graduate students pursuing careers in meat science and animal agriculture. Two $15,000 grants will be awarded to students who show exceptional academic and leadership skills and are committed to advancing the beef industry. Past winners say the scholarship has significantly benefited their work and the industry. To apply, students will need to submit a cover letter, a description of goals and experience, a statement about their belief in the industry, a review of their research, and 3 recommendation letters by September 20th. Winners will be announced at CattleCon 2025 in Texas. More information about the scholarship is available at nationalcattlemensfoundation.org. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is expecting a challenging fiscal year 2025 with a record ag trade deficit on the horizon. Exports are expected to drop to $169.5 billion, down $4 billion from the previous year. The main culprits are lower prices for key crops like soybeans, corn, and cotton, as well as reduced beef exports. At the same time, agricultural imports are forecast to hit a record $212 billion, driven by growing demand for imported fresh produce, sugar, and tropical goods. This will push the agricultural trade deficit to an all-time high of $42.5 billion, continuing a trend of increasing deficits. The USDA notes that while the U.S. economy is still strong, the growth is expected to slow down in 2025, adding to the challenges facing U.S. farmers. Even in wet years, water management approaches still create challenges for farmers. Fresno County Farm Bureau CEO Ryan Jacobson said the methodology for allocations will need some adjustment for the long-term viability of California agriculture.
That's been just the insanity of where we are right now. We got to really talk about the amazing water year we had in 2023. Obviously, there were some places that were affected by flooding, but we're talking one of the wettest years on record in the state of California for 2023. And what we were able to do to continue to get those supplies into the groundwater, try to build up our aquifer and make some progress towards that. I say all that in the sense that here we are, 2023, incredibly wet year. 2024, we looked at initial water allocations that were 15-20%. That did eventually build to over 50, but it came a long time after everything already took place. And by the time that crop planting decisions for this year had to be made, hopefully it helps a little bit for this fall season and going into the next year. But we really have issues when it comes to the way that our water supply is now managed and the way that our allocations are made. And we're going to have long-term ramifications to this valley if we don't find ways to come for our state leaders to find some common ground to try to fix these issues for the long term.
Next week, UC Agriculture and Natural Resources is hosting a research symposium on advances in Southwest desert agriculture research, organic production, and food safety. The symposium's being held on September 19th at AgWest Farm Credit in Imperial, with presentations beginning at 9 a.m. with a beginner's perspective on insect pest management in low desert agriculture. That will be followed up by information about summer cover cropping and composting treatments in the Imperial Valley and the efficacy of soil and plant sensing technologies in detecting and monitoring water stress in cantaloupe production. After the break, presentations will be covering topics including IPM strategies in onions, research from the Western Center for Food Safety, and the occurrence of antibiotic-resistant bacteria in produce. More information about the symposium is available on the upcoming events page at agnetwest.com. I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
USDA is expanding wildfire protection efforts. That's coming up on this line of ours. The USDA is expanding the scope of its efforts to reduce wildfires. Gary Crawford has more.
Improve the health of the forests and reduce the risks to communities from wildfires. The Department of Agriculture's Forest Service has been working to do that kind of work in 21 specially selected fire sheds, but Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack told reporters Tuesday the scope of the work is being expanded.
Today we're announcing a commitment of $100 million that will fund 21 projects in 18 national forests across 14 states. Now, these resources are going to allow us to work with states, local governments, tribes, and nonprofit organizations working to promote healthier forests throughout this 14-state area.
Vilsack said these new projects will help protect 550 communities, plus 2,500 miles of high-voltage power lines, 1,800 watersheds, which provide drinking water for millions of people. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Multiple organizations with a focus on farm safety and health approach various aspects of this concern through education, resources, and awareness campaigns, such as the National Farm Safety and Health Week. Rod Bain looks at some of the efforts to cultivate safety on the farm in this edition of Agriculture USA.
And awareness generated right about harvest time for several parts of the country. Farm safety and health. Concerned efforts to address this issue has led to progress. Yet,
I first started doing this in the year 2000, and we were averaging 730 fatalities per year. So getting down to 417 is a good stride, but we're never going to get down to zero during my working lifetime.
So Dan Neenan of the National Education Center for Farm Safety and other farm safety advocates and professionals continue their efforts to reduce injuries and fatalities connected to agriculture.
The National Children's Center is one of 12 agricultural centers across the nation that create resources. We do research, we figure out what's causing injuries, what's causing fatalities, and we give resources back to the farmers.
I'm Rod Bain. Melissa Pluckelman of the National Farm Medicine Center joins us as we look at growing farm safety awareness and response in this edition of Agriculture USA. Don't learn safety by accident. While the theme of this year's National Farm Safety and Health Week, Dan Neenan of the National Education Center for Agricultural Safety notes the word accident is a misnomer.
Because accident, in most people's mind, mean there's nothing that could have been done to prevent it. So we're trying to get the words across of preventable incident.
Hence, preventable incident is also part of the theme, in parentheses, for Farm Safety and Health Week, the third week of September. The 2024 edition is but the latest in a series of annual observances.
It's one of the longest running presidential proclamation weeks. Actually, FDR signed the first one way back in 1944.
And while don't learn safety by accident, preventable incident is the overarching theme of National Farm Safety and Health Week this year, each day offers a theme or subject of education.
Monday is equipment and rural roadway safety. Tuesday is health and wellness. Wednesday is generations. Thursday is confined spaces, grain bins, manure pits. And Friday is reporting ag injuries.
So in terms of types of programming offered during the week,
we partner with the AgriSafe Nurses Network on a series of webinars. There's 2 webinars per day that are set up throughout the week. We get a lot of calls from co-ops wanting to use the logo, the theme. We've got some FFA chapters that borrow some of our props. We always get folks that like to do some training during that week. So we will be out doing some grain bin rescue, some anhydrous ammonia emergency response.
More information is available online at www.necasag.org. Click the link to National Farm Safety and Health Week. While the numbers of fatalities recorded in 2022, 417, is well below the numbers from 2 decades ago, it is the need to reduce annual farm fatality numbers further that drives safety professionals like Dan Neenan and Scott Heiberger of the National Farm Medicine Center.
One of the big problems with any public health problem you're facing or public health situation, you need to know where you stand. You need the data. We call it injury surveillance, and it's a real challenge.
That is what led the National Farm Medicine Center and partners at the Marshfield Clinic Research Institute almost a decade ago to create an entity, Ag Injury News.
It's trying to help researchers, extension people, journalists, public health specialists, help them understand where the problems are so that you can focus interventions. Resources are limited and you can't attack all problems at the same time, but if you can see where the most injuries are occurring, either geography, age, types of injuries, then you can kind of marshal your resources more effectively.
That online resource can be found at www.aginjurynews.org. Heiberger's colleague at the National Farm Medicine Center, Melissa Plockelman, also contributes her expertise on farm safety education with numerous groups, with a focus on farm safety for children. This includes a collaborative effort by farm safety organizations in place since 1999, the Childhood Agricultural Safety Network.
The CASN. And that organization is something that anyone who is interested in protecting youth on farms can get involved in. It's a network where we talk about what are the injuries that are happening, what are the trends that we're seeing, and then what are we doing to prevent those injuries and fatalities. And we share information with each other.
She adds anyone can join the network by going online to www.cultivatesafety, all one word, .org/CASN. This has been Agriculture USA. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Francine could pose a threat to several crops in the South and Mid-South. Gary Crawford reports.
Farmers along the Texas-Louisiana coast and up into the Mid-South are doing what they can to get ready for Hurricane Francine.
We are going to be watching very carefully a number of crops that are vulnerable to potential storm damage.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says Francine's winds and rains could spell trouble for sugarcane, which is due to be harvested here in a couple of weeks. Also on the watch list is cotton.
The majority of cotton bolls are open across the region,
making cotton particularly susceptible to wind and water damage. And
there's not much producers can do about that. That crop is open, highly vulnerable to wind and rain.
And indeed, Brad Rippey says, unfortunately,
we may lose some cotton if everything plays out like we think it will with this storm.
Rippey says Francine could also do some damage to rice and soybeans. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. What about humates in animal feed? When can you add humates to the animal feed, and what is the benefit of that?
So the interesting thing about animal feeds is just like the fertilizer side, there's actually a lot going on in legislative processes. So there's an act out called the Innovative Feed Act. And currently, you can't include things in animal feed that are giving you other benefits besides nutritive benefits. Let's say, for example, you had a cow that was eating a product that reduced its methane emissions, those enteric gases that are caused just in the natural digestion of a ruminating cow. You can't claim that those products do that benefit. So hopefully people will get involved and say, look, the Innovative Feed Act is necessary and should help farmers. Other benefits of feeding humate is obviously first to reduce enteric gases. But the second one, these are old plant materials. So those plant materials are rich in trace minerals. So not only are you getting something that's going to help the digestion of the animal, you're also getting an abundant supply of minerals. So that is the main reason farmers are currently including in their animal feeds.
This is all fascinating, but it can be hard to retain some of this information when you're hearing this on the radio or through the podcast. So is there someplace online, or where can our listeners go and get more information?
Well, the good news is the acts I mentioned, like the Innovative Feed Act and the Plant Biostimulant Act, are publicly available through Congress. You can actually go look at those acts. They're on the website there. The other information you can get is directly through Live Earth Products. So if you go to liveearth.com, contact us. You can contact us and our agronomy team. And we're happy to go over any details, questions about how to use these products, how they fit in your farm program, how to use them as a tool to implement conservation practices such as nutrient retention, water conservation, and improving soil health.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com. This is the AgNet News Hour, and we will be back in just a moment. You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. Here is this week's Almond Update.
Today's specialty crop news brought to you by the Almond Board of California. You can find them online at almonds.com. Senior Specialist of Industry Relations for the Almond Board, Rebecca Bailey, is with us here this morning to talk about the latest announcement regarding this year's Almond Conference. And it's a pretty big one that people will want to be paying attention to, right?
Yes, definitely. So today, September 12th at 12 p.m. noon Pacific time, hotel blocks will open for this year's Almond Conference. So if there's a specific hotel that you want to stay at, especially one of the ones near the convention center, you want to make sure that you're at your computer promptly at 12 p.m. noon today to book those hotel rooms.
Yeah, absolutely want to be kind of standing by and ready to go with that. Those hotel blocks can be a little competitive to try and get a room there, but I know that you folks worked with a couple of extra hotels this year to try and open things up for people. So what are some options for people interested in attending this year?
Yeah, certainly. So anyone can view any of our partnering hotels on our website on almonds.com/conference. There is a full list that you can view in the next few hours before they open. You know, of course, we're going to be blocking and working with some of our historical hotel partners like the Sheraton and the Hyatt, which of course, a lot of folks love to stay there because they're easy access to the convention center. And those are typically the two that will sell out very quickly. So if those are one of the ones you want, make sure you're on there right at noon to book those rooms. Also this year, we're again booking with the Embassy Suites, which is a little closer to the riverfront area, but still downtown, the Holiday Inn Arena. And then, yeah, we have a couple other hotels that are a little further away, but a little closer to the airport area. So wanted to try to branch out this year and just try it out. So we have a couple hotels we're working with in the Natomas area. So it would be about a 5 to 7 mile drive to the convention center, but great hotel options. There's a great offering of different pricing and proximity to the convention center.
Very cool. It's nice to have maybe a handful more options this year just to make sure that folks get a room nearby that they want to go. And I know we've talked about it a little bit between you and myself and Taylor as well about what this year's conference will be holding. But let's kind of just start with some of the basics of when it's going to be held this year and, some of the points of interest for folks.
Yeah, of course. We're definitely in full conference mode, gearing up for the Almond Conference. The dates will be December 10th through 12th. So this December, of course, Tuesday through Thursday. We will kick off on Tuesday a little earlier in the morning with breakout sessions. The trade show will open a little later that first day. And then, of course, we'll have the State of the Industry and opening reception on Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday, of course, we'll start the day off with a breakfast session that will be hosted by our global market development team. So it will really be a kind of a driving global demand update, and that will be a large general session. And you don't have to purchase the breakfast to attend that session either. And then, of course, we'll have the trade show open all day Wednesday. We'll have breakout sessions going all day. And then just again, new this year on Wednesday, we are not having a gala dinner this year. So that is a big change for the Almond Conference this year, is that we are not having a gala, but we are having a secondary reception on the trade show floor on Wednesday. So that will be in lieu of the gala. And then, of course, Thursday's agenda, we'll have some breakout sessions, and then the trade show will be open throughout the day. And then everything will pretty much close down right around noon on that Thursday to give, folks, especially our exhibitors who are traveling home, time to get out of there and get home that day. So that's kind of in general what the 3-day agenda is looking like.
Very cool. And out of curiosity, I know what the theme for this year is going to be is rooted together and kind of that spirit of banding together as an industry. But what are some of the topics of discussion that are going to be highlighted and kind of a central focus for this year's conference?
Yeah, well, of course, with the rooted together theme, you want to make sure, state of the industry is always the most well attended address from our president and CEO, as well as our board of directors chair. So that's always a great update, just to kind of reflecting on this year in the industry and looking forward to the future and what the Almond Board is doing to support the industry. So definitely want to make sure if you're coming to conference to go to that session. As far as breakout sessions go, we have 18 breakout sessions. So, and there are sessions spanning from everything related to innovation in almond products and what we're doing with hulls and shells, everything from that to, of course, irrigation efficiencies and systems. So there will be a lot of production focused sessions. Of course, growers are our primary audience, and the ones who we serve in this industry. So I want to make sure that there's a lot of relevant content for them to be able to consume and take home to their operations. The agenda for specific content sessions is not available yet. We're finalizing that, but of course we'll have our official conference program available hopefully by early November, that we'll be sharing with folks prior to the conference.
So people will definitely want to stay tuned and stay updated on information as that becomes available. And just again to recap, that hotel block for the Almond Conference this year will open up at 12 noon Pacific today. And for people wanting to learn more or to get their hands on some of those hotel rooms, what's the best place to get some more information?
Yeah, of course. Go to almonds.com/conference and go to the hotels page for the specific hotel information. Again, we have the full listing. Once the hotels are live at noon, there will be links to each of those and how you can access those for our conference rate. And then, typically our blocks do sell out pretty quickly. So we do have some additional hotels listed that we have not blocked with. So we do not have group rates with them, but there are other hotel options within the downtown Sacramento area that folks can take a look at. And just wanted to remind everyone that we never go out or use third parties or agencies to help book hotels. So if you get any kind of email like that, it is not from us, it is a scam email. So just make sure you always reach out directly to the hotels to book your accommodations.
You are listening to the AgNet News Hour. Now for more news. The 2024 wildfire season is still going strong. Gary Crawford reports.
Fire and forest officials were hoping this year's wildfire season would be perhaps less active and shorter than recent years. However,
we continue to have significant weather events and new fire starts.
U.S. Forest Service Chief Randy Moore telling reporters this week that we have seen fewer fires this year, but they have burned more acres, almost 7 million so far. And
the outlook for the short term is not favorable.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey.
We have a windy cold front moving into the northwest. That is likely to create later this week conditions that are primed for additional wildfire expansion and development, and that could lead to a couple of tough days for firefighters.
Roughly 23,000 people are currently fighting wildfires across the country. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
In other news, the final 4 rounds of USDA Organic Market Development Grants were recently awarded to recipient projects in efforts to build market opportunities for organic products. Rod Bain reports.
building capacity, infrastructure, and demand. All aspects of a USDA grant program centered on organic ag growers and the organic industry.
We're excited to announce our fourth and final round of the Organic Market Development Grants. This is $9.8 million in funding for 14 projects in 9 states.
The recent announcement by Undersecretary for Marketing and Regulatory Programs Jenny Moffitt regarding total funding from the Organic Market Development Grant Award over its 4 rounds.
This will bring the total for the awards to $85 million in 36 states across the nation, as well as the District of Columbia. We've been making these announcements over the course of the past months, announcing our first round in January.
In terms of the intent of this program,
the Organic Market Development Grant Program is really about supporting the development and expansion of new and existing markets to help increase consumption of domestic organic products, but also for organic producers to have a really critical and important value chain.
Some examples regarding improving organic market value chains include
increasing the supply for domestic producers, handlers, processors, everyone throughout the supply chain, facilitating market development, removing barriers for entry to organic certification for small producers, expanding capacity for processing, aggregation, distribution, storage of products, supporting and promotional activities.
The grants also focus on organic sector projects addressing specific pinpointed market needs in categories such as organic grains and livestock feed and organic dairy. For instance,
a coalition of producers out in Colorado called the Colorado Grain Chain. They're looking at the whole supply chain of grains in Colorado and the value add production and opportunity for grain producers and what that will mean for increasing the organic grain supply in the state. So things like distillers and bakers and all of these other different ways in which grain producers can sell to higher value markets.
The grant program is part of USDA's Organic Transition Initiative. More information about OTI is available online at www.farmers.gov/organic-transition-initiative. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halverson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.